clock. NBA Finals Game 1, Thursday, June 5th. We are here. Oklahoma City Thunder versus the Indiana Pacers. We've been talking about this series for quite some time, and it's not to say that they were on a collision course, but after the Pacers did take, of course, first two in the Garden, at the Garden, you knew darn well that there was pretty good chance that they were going to be in the NBA Finals. Still, though, Cinderella's story. Yeah, choke. Yeah, there you go. Cinderella's story. The Pacers are the Cinderella story. I get it on the surface. For the people that pay attention to the NBA, I'm sure we could have some pushback on that. But at the end of the day, nobody was saying the Indiana Pacers are going to be in the NBA Finals. Nobody was when everything got started 2 months ago. How long ago did the playoffs start, Sean Barnard?
Yeah, feels like forever. But I mean, to the Pacers' credit, they closed the season with a 40-17 record that they've been legitimate for a while now. And this was a team that was in the conference semifinals just last year. And by the way, on the note of how that series did go down, I know we are all haunted by the Kawhi Leonard shot here in Philadelphia. How long do you think that Tyrese Halliburton shot is going to stick in Tom Thibodeau's head, man?
Well, he's making $30 million. He's probably on an island, so hopefully he's not thinking about too much.
That does help. That does help.
A lot to discuss from that side of things, too, as well, with Tibbs being fired by the New York Knicks. Some names that were being discussed yesterday. Some surprising, some not so much. Shoot for the stars. I do know this much. They don't have their guy. For the people that are out there going, oh, if you make a decision like this, you have a guy. No, they don't have their guy. No, it's not how they operate.
Yeah, that definitely seems to be the realization to me. We're seeing interest in Jason Kidd. We're seeing interest in active head coaches, some guys at the collegiate level. Like, it does feel like they're going to fully search things. And I guess this brings me back to my message here of the grass is not always greener. That I understand that Tom Thibodeau is not perfect. I understand that there are flaws that you can point to. But to me, this would only be a conversation where you make this type of move if you have this next step lined up. Now that we are a couple days with the dust settled here, pretty clear that is not the case from New York Knicks perspective. So it's going to be very interesting to see what direction they go. I still think if I'm putting a favorite right now, it probably is Johnny Bryant. That's what it feels like to me. He did not get the Suns job. They went with Jordan Ott over there. And also pretty interesting to me, that is Devin Booker's 7th head coach across his time in Phoenix. That's tied for the most among any active player. That's pretty absurd stuff for a guy who's not even that old yet. But he was very active in that search. Jordan Ott ultimately got the call there. I do wonder if Johnny Bryant not being selected or pulling his name out or whatever that conversation was does lead down the pathway that New York is his next destination.
Did you read that he pulled his name out of contention for that title?
I haven't seen that directly here. I've seen. I know it was down to Jordan Ott and Johnny Bryant. They ultimately went with Ott, and the reports that I've seen, how it's been phrased, is that Devin Booker gave the stamp of approval on Ott. So nothing with Bryant directly, but I've also read a lot of the theorization that kind of what sparked this Thibs decision was the fact that Bryant was in the mix and in the finalists there.
Should basketball fans should I know Johnny Bryant and Ott? Should I be familiar with them? Because I'm not.
Both first-time head coaches. I'm not mad about you not knowing these. They're not guys that I'm crazy familiar with. Johnny Bryant heard his name a little bit. He's a pretty well-respected assistant coach. I do think in general, the NBA has a little bit of problem that they cycle through the same Frank Vogels, Mike Budenholzer, and the same guys, Doc Rivers, you can throw in the mix of just the same recycled names. So I do give teams credit for thinking a little bit outside the box and giving guys some first-time opportunities. Johnny Bryant, very well-respected in the New York circles that he spent, I believe, 4 years as an assistant coach. He was the lead assistant on the Cavaliers this past season. So it's not a bad thing if you don't fully know who he is, but he is respected in the basketball circles.
Yeah, see, then that's where I was at because, it's the recycling bin of coaches when it comes to it. And it's not just the NBA. We see this happening time and time again, where even in Major League Baseball, Bruce Bochy gets called. And look, he obviously had success too, so it's no denying that. But people are trying to hope that they can find some success with these veteran coaches. It's not an easy gig. Dealing professionals, it's definitely not an easy gig when you're a first-time head coach dealing with the New York Knicks, who, oh, by the way, have to take another step after making it to the Eastern Conference. Good luck to the new head coach there. And I'm against that. I don't think that would be a smart move unless you are absolutely wowed and this is the next big thing. Then I get it. But from a Knicks standpoint, man, you're throwing meat to the wolves on that one.
Well, this is what I think my realization when I was certainly caught off guard. And I think that our show on Tuesday, speaking about it, was pretty much all of us like stunned and trying to pick up the pieces and react to this now. After I had a little time to digest it, sort of how I would break it down is it's pretty clear to me that what the Knicks organization is portraying right now is they are not as close as the results indicate there, that they are not quite the top 4 team in the NBA the way that they obviously were this year. And when you do think back to their path, it doesn't get easier than what laid out in front of them. That obviously the Cleveland Cavaliers, after a borderline historic regular season, which they were excellent, 164 games, were the best team in the Eastern Conference from wire to wire. They were knocked out by the Indiana Pacers. The Boston Celtics, yes, the Knicks beat them directly, but Jason Tatum, the torn Achilles there, they also had some really questionable decision-making as far as they shot 20 consecutive three-pointers in the space of a game. And then just looking at the Knicks in their own mirror here, they were down 20 points on a seemingly nightly basis from a playoff perspective. And they do deserve credit for scrapping back and finding ways to win. But is that really a sustainable way to win basketball games moving forward? And then just with the roster in itself, there's certainly fair critiques. Mikal Bridges being underutilized as an offensive weapon this year. Karl Anthony Towns, he was a net negative with Jalen Brunson on the floor. They had a negative 6.9 net rating in the conference finals there where they were ultimately eliminated. That can't really happen with your 2 best players. Now, I would push back on that and say, once again, that's more of a roster issue than anything Thibodeau could have done in that. But I think that's kind of the message that is being sent by the Knicks. And there are a lot of people in that kitchen cooking right now.
Yeah, you're right about that. All right. We'll just continue to jab at the New York Knicks conversation because, look, we appreciate it, giving us something else to discuss over these next few weeks until they do decide on a head coach. And it is a big position with a lot of expectations and a team that we know a ton about because they just finished up their season. But man, it's a tough one for me to really grasp at this point in time. And Tibbs, I'm not, like I said yesterday, I would have brought him back. Yeah. I would have brought him back, and I think he earned the opportunity. And oh, by the way, if it doesn't go right at the middle of the part of the season, you at least have that card. Sure. Right now you want to get their attention. Tibbs, see it. Now it doesn't work. It didn't work for the Denver Nuggets. It didn't work for most teams that fire their head coach and have success in that season. But you just never know with something like that because Tibbs is so different. And that team, I thought from afar, was really together. But more and more, you're starting to hear about the cracks and whether or not there's truth behind it. But Brunson, his old man, is catching some strays yesterday.
Yeah.
Just from you think back on the trading of Dante DiVincenzo, how all that went down, and
him chirping with Rick Brunson. Yeah.
Yep. So there's definitely something going on, and I think you nailed it by saying we look at this team all cute and cuddly, doing podcasts, getting the commercials.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Josh Hart and Jalen Brunson, cool, but other than that, maybe not as tight as we once thought. That's all.
And even like when you break that down, like for starters, the Rick Brunson thing, like the Dante DiVincenzo interaction that happened, the direct quote that Dante was yelling at him was, "This is what happens when they let you make the decisions." Like that's a pretty telling quote to be spitting from the free throw line there.
What?
And also for the Rick Brunson, for Rick Brunson in specific, I understand that he has a legitimate resume as a coach. That I understand like he is not just Jalen Brunson's dad, but to the same token here, is it really the best thing when your best player's dad is on the coaching staff here? Like as a head coach, as Tom Thibodeau, is that the best spot to be possibly put in? Because it is impossible to fully separate that, even with all the coaching experience and him obviously being qualified with Rick Brunson. So that kind of complicates things. And then looking inside this next team there's kind of all these like fractions here. Like there are the Villanova guys, obviously. Karl Anthony Towns sort of seems to beat to his own drum. Mitchell Robinson, certainly a guy that beats his own drum and is not afraid to throw out an Instagram post about I'm not just here to rebound and things like that. That certainly stirs the pot a little bit. And you can just kind of see that there might have been more cracks. And then when speaking from it from like the organizational standpoint, Leon Rose and Worldwide West deserve the utmost credit for building this team, making a ton of really smart decisions. But when success starts to turn around, everyone wants a little bit of piece of that credit. Like James Dolan, who I know Sam was very much theorizing had to have at least a hand in this. It had to be a miserable past 20 years running the Knicks for James Dolan. There was a lot that went wrong, a lot of poor imaging, and now it's fun again. That you got to better believe that he wants to be back in the spotlight. That I've heard some of the rumors of him handpicking where the celebrities are sitting and being involved in that action, making sure Timmy Chalamet is set up, posted up watching this game, all that kind of stuff. That the vibes have changed in New York. This should be like a riding high moment, but I almost feel like it's a little bit of everyone wanting a bit more piece of the credit than they may necessarily deserve.
Well stated. And I do know this much. Dolan might have seemed like he backed off, but there were people that were saying, and I heard on NBA radio, he never backed off completely. He was still in the mix. That's understood. He's the owner, very invested. Of course, it's the New York Knicks. And then whether we're talking about X's and O's, players to keep, whatever it may be, coaches to fire, or celebrities in front row, I'm not sure how that works. Seems like a fun gig. I would imagine you're going to ruffle a few feathers with that conversation as well. Oh, you know what? You were you were front row, and that was round one. This is Eastern Conference Finals. Now we're bumping you back 3 rows back. We'll see. Also, speaking of catching strays on NBA radio, it was great. Doc Rivers caught strays pretty bad, because it was what could Tibbs do in the future if he does get another opportunity. And they were almost saying, like, look, you think it's a shock why Doc Rivers continues to get these opportunities? What does Doc do well? And then my man goes, Eddie Johnson goes, Doc Rivers can talk himself out of a paper bag, man. Like, he is about as smooth as it gets, and that's what you need, right? And to play the politics, that side of things. And Tibbs is a my way or the highway type of guy, apparently. And, it ruffled a few feathers, and maybe if he went about it a different way, but he's 67 too, I want to say.
Yeah.
I didn't know he was that old. He's not changing, is his point. Like, once you get that age, man, I'm 44. I'm not changing.
Sure. And for the Doc Rivers conversation, let's not forget how he even got hired by the Bucks initially here, that he was brought on as an advisor, and then he's helping Adrian Griffin guide this team. And then all of a sudden, Adrian Griffin with a winning record, I forget the exact numbers, something along the likes of like 27-10 or something like that, far better than any record that Doc Rivers ever produced with this Bucks team. Doc, as a special advisor, all of a sudden, hey, you know who really could get the most out of this team? It's me. I can't believe I'm in this spot right now. And then that's how he gets the midseason hire. Like, that's the dirty game, the dirty part of this, kind of the politicking. But Doc has done it quite well, and obviously created quite a few opportunities for himself. The results on the court certainly not speaking for themselves from the Bucks perspective. But Doc, he'll do it again if he does get chased out of Milwaukee.
All right, a lot of people watching. We do have an NBA Finals that we will get to. We will end up with some Sixers conversation, because it was intriguing. Sean and I were talking before we started rolling. There was a Keith Pompey article that was out there that I missed. And full disclosure, we'll leave that for another day, but I missed it. And I was surprised to hear what Sean had to say to me, and it's a shame, but we'll talk more about that little Sixers conversation at the end here. But let's open it up. NBA Finals game number 1. Of course, we know about the history and how much the Oklahoma City Thunder are favored by when it comes to all things NBA or NBA wagering. Now down to minus 650. So money coming in on the Pacers as far as series price is concerned. This was as high as Oklahoma City at minus 800. So minus 650 on the afternoon morning of game 1 here, plus 475 for the Pacers. That was as high as plus 500. I remember, I don't think I've ever seen anything higher than that, but now down to plus 475. So some significant movement as far as OKC is concerned, but that's no surprise, Sean, because at the end of the day, people want to get involved, and you're just not going to lay minus 700, minus 800.
Yeah, right. I do think that is the story here. And I mean, that's what makes it difficult with all this is like, I do think the Pacers continue to be a disrespected team. I do think they're a more talented and more polished basketball team than they've really been given credit still. But with that being said, there is just a lot to this Oklahoma City Thunder team. That they've done the rebuild exactly right. They've built this flourishing next generation with all these future picks, all this young talent, that it is not stopping anytime soon. But do not let that short sell you on how good they are currently. They have the reigning MVP in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. They have a borderline historic defense on how efficient they are. And the biggest selling point on this Pacers team throughout this playoff run, it's been the depth. It's been the pace. Those are things that statistically the Thunder have graded out, playing at a faster pace, forcing turnovers at a higher rate, and they have the depth and talent to match Indiana. So what I would say was the Pacers' greatest strength is probably taken away in this series. I do think that ultimately there will be too much that the Oklahoma City Thunder do have, but I give Indiana a bit more of a puncher's chance than I think a lot of people do.
All right. Yeah, look, there's an interesting few ways of looking at this series, and I know the Gambler Gang is somewhat swayed into believing that the Pacers are going to make this a good series. I'm all over the place. Like I'll tell you where I'm at. I just feel like that the Oklahoma City Thunder are going to be too much in the fourth quarter, and specifically maybe in the second half, right? We know about their third quarter runs. I don't see that stopping. This is a team that just has been doing it all season long, and they have been dominant. Yeah. Absolute dominant. Just take a look at the numbers. This isn't a fluke. Like if you tell me SGA has an off night, he's still going to command double teams. They're not going to run one off on him. Chet could get going. Chet's a hell of a basketball player. Jalen Williams, some might call him Jamal Williams. Either one, he's incredible. All right, and he's proved his worth. And then some. We just go down with the Caruso move and the size advantage. And like I'll pepper you with a few things that I have read in the last 2 days that people are trying to make the case for the Indiana Pacers here. And first of all, tonight's spread is now 10.
Yeah.
10-point spread. So the focus on game one here, Sean, give me 30 seconds on this one. How do you feel about giving 10 points here for OKC in game one?
I mean, there is very much, this is my prediction for these two games, and I'm trying to put my finger on which one is which. I do think the Pacers steal one from this Oklahoma City Thunder team. I think
agree.
They go back to Indiana 1-1. The game that they don't steal, I think Oklahoma City probably wins by like 40 is kind of my concern here. I think from a betting perspective, it's worth taking a swing on the money line in both games. And I would probably lay off that if the Pacers do win tonight. But we're getting plus 340 on the money line right now. That's one that I'm laying tonight that I do think is they have a real chance on. And for the 30 seconds for how it's done, you got to make sure you're playing at your pace. You got to make sure that you're the team pushing the tempo. And Oklahoma City can do the exact same thing, that they can run with this team at a better rate than any team that they face so far. But the Pacers have to make sure they're playing their brand of basketball. And Tyrese Halliburton, man, I know it's been an incredible playoff run, that he's earned a lot of respect. You still got to take it up another notch. This has to be one that you're at least in the vicinity of a player like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. And my fear is that unique shot form becomes more problematic in this series than we've really seen to this point.
Cousin Nicky checking in. He likes OKC in 5. And, look, I guess a lot of people are saying 5, and I get that's what we have to do, right? We got to make a call as far as games are concerned. But just because we say 5 doesn't mean every game is going to be a blowout. And that's where I'm at. Like, I do think the Oklahoma City Thunder are going to raise the Larry O'Brien Trophy next week. They're going to be the NBA champions of this season. No ifs, ands, buts about it. If they don't win, this could go down as one of the greatest upsets in sports history. Just being real about it, which is ridiculous. But and then with that, I think that we're going to see some good games. I think that we're going to see some 6-7 point victories. And guess what? That doesn't cover the number. So in a way, I'm kind of pitching you the Pacers. But back to my original thought, Sean, and one thing that I want to pitch you is from the conversations that I've heard, things I've been reading, it starts and ends with 3-pointers for the Pacers. If they're able to hit their 3-pointers, they're obviously going to hang in the game. Will that be enough for them to steal games, though?
I mean, they've been incredible at execution down the stretch. And if we are going to throw critique on this Thunder team, it's still the youth. It's still the message that we've brought in here. And honestly, like, even with all the success that they haven't played in a ton of like super tight games. Like, there's far more convincing data for how Indiana has operated in the clutch this postseason versus the Thunder, who've kind of had a fairly easy path. I know the Nuggets pushed them to 7. They certainly have had games where they've had to battle down the stretch, and I'm not doubting them. Like, I do think they are fully capable, but if we're just comparing these directly based on what we've seen in this playoffs, that if it comes to a crunch time game, you can make a case that you trust the Pacers a little bit more. So that's probably the direction I would say there. And to your point about, like, even if it is in a series in 5, it being close, think back to that Pacers-Celtics series in the Eastern Conference Finals last year. That was a sweep by Boston, but every game went down to the wire there. Like, I did not feel like the Pacers were far off in that series, despite what the ultimate history books will say that was a 4-0 series loss.
Yeah, you're right. And that's why, look, this number continues to climb. Like, maybe people are starting to think like you are, where we'll see a blowout. I don't think that the Pacers are going to go in there and get blown out in game 1. Could it happen? Sure. That's how good Oklahoma City is. But I feel like game 1's going to be tight. Third quarter, second half, OKC is going to do their thing. I guess I have to stick to my guns and take the Pacers plus the 10. That is a lot of points.
Yeah.
And again, I think in game 1, you could see a slow start. That's probably where I would, if I was wagering on tonight's game and putting it out there for the people, I would say, you know what? If there was going to be some nerves, because I think it's a wash in that category. Both teams have never been to the NBA Finals, or none of these players have. 2012 for OKC, as far as franchise is concerned. 2000, I want to say, for the Pacers, both in the finals. But these players have never been to the NBA Finals before, so I think nerves will definitely be a factor. And I do believe playing at home a little bit more for OKC. I think the Pacers will come out and play loose, hit a couple shots, and start rolling. But If they don't, it could get ugly like it did in that final game against the Minnesota Timberwolves in Oklahoma City. But I'll bet that the Pacers do have a good first half. I think third quarter will be OKC. It will tighten up in that fourth quarter, back and forth, couple big shots made, and it's going to be teetering right around that 6, 7, 8 point mark. I think the Pacers are going to play tonight.
Yeah, that's good. That's how I look at it as well. And kind of my same message that I think like it is worth, even if it is a blowout and looks completely like horrible tonight, I'm going right back to the well for game 2. That I think it's one of these two games is the recipe or what Indiana has to be fully focused on. Get it back to Indiana with a 1-1 series split. And I do think they make that happen here. So I do think it's worth with the numbers, the crazy numbers that are being laid out there. Once again, plus 340 on the money line, that coming from DraftKings Sportsbook there. I think that is worth laying and taking a chance on. And if you do take that number both nights and like they cover one of the two, you're up money there. So that's sort of what my mindset is with these first two games.
All right. And then another thing I'm reading is we know how good defensively OKC is, but a lot of their points come off of steals.
Yeah.
And people are saying that, look, that, Carlisle and company, and you got some steady hands bringing the ball up for the Pacers. They don't think that that's going to be that much of a factor as far as steals and transition turning into points for OKC in this series, specifically game 1. What is your thoughts on that? Because we know how good both teams are, and I give the advantage to OKC, but it's a whole different ballgame when we're talking about, let's just say, like the one game where they held Minnesota to 12 field goals and had 13 steals at halftime.
Yeah. I mean, Indiana's been very good about limiting their turnovers, but I do think the Thunder are a level that they have not quite seen, certainly in this playoff run and really throughout the season here. That we've seen Tyrese Halliburton held the 4 points in the regular season against this team. And like, I think probably one thing to keep an eye on throughout this is I think they're going to shift Halliburton way more off ball than we're accustomed to seeing. That he is very much the engine of this Pacers offense and the guy that needs to be the primary decision maker. But when you're talking about the Alex Carusos, the Lou Dorts, the Cason Wallaces, the Jalen Williams that are going to all get chances of guarding this dude, picking up 94 feet, I think the secret to creating shots for him is to play him a little bit off ball. I do wonder if that impacts the turnovers a little bit. If you're asking Aaron Naismith or Andrew Nembhard to be the point guard of this team and take the ball up, we may see a little additional TJ McConnell, which could be fun for us out here to add a little more ball handling on the court up there. I still lean, I guess, like Indiana has been very good about it. It will show up in stretches, but I do think they're smart enough to overcome it. So I don't think it'll be as convincing as we've seen with Oklahoma City and some of these other Western Conference matchups, but certainly a storyline to monitor.
Total games, 5.5 on DraftKings Sportsbook, plus 120, under 5.5 at minus 140. You got a ton to choose from here over at DraftKings. Of course, the series spread for a lot of people out there. Pacers plus 2.5 is at plus 120. OKC minus 2.5 is minus 140. Minus 1.5 is your favorite there at minus 290 for the Thunder. Pacers plus 1.5 games at plus 235. The exact games, 5 plus 230, 4 plus 240, 6 games plus 300, 7 plus 350. You think this is going 6 or 5?
I'm going 6. So I do like the over for the 5.5 minus 140 there. That I do think Indiana steals one of the first two in Oklahoma City, and sort of the same dance happens when things go home for them. And I don't think Oklahoma City wraps thing up more than that. I guess my gut play here is the Pacers win tonight, the Thunder blow them out tomorrow, the Thunder win game 3, Indiana punches back, wins game 4, and then the Thunder win back-to-back to close things out. That's sort of the blueprint that I have laid out or expecting there. Could see either one of those splits going the other direction, and there certainly is still a chance that Oklahoma City rolls. And while we're throwing out some of these series bets, I did want to throw out, also offered on DraftKings, there's a ton of player prop stuff that's real good. The 3-point makes leader in the series. Tyrese Halliburton's the favorite at minus 125. I really think he's going to have some struggles getting his shots off there. You can get Aaron Naismith at plus 425, which is the second best odds there. I think that's really worth the swing, that he's going to be gunning. We've seen how red hot that he can get and how much that can change a game there. I do think he's clearly their best 3-point shooter, and I think there's going to be a conscious effort to generate looks for them. So laying the plus 425 for Aaron Naismith to lead this series and make 3-pointers, I do think is a really good bet there.
I want to focus on Pascal Siakam for a second. We know what he did. Of course, Eastern Conference Finals MVP, whether you would have voted for him or not, still a different story. He did lead.
Crazy.
Yeah, did lead the series in points. And one article I read that he was going to be a little bit a tough assignment for the Thunder here, regardless of who's defending him. Your thoughts on that conversation? Do you think Pascal Siakam is that dangerous in this series?
He's a strange mix of player that like he almost is like a bigger version of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in the way that his movement is. That I think like if I'm describing Shai, his number one best quality is there is just this like variable movement or it's tough to stick with or predict what he's this unpredictability as he goes through the lane. Siakam has a lot of those same qualities and is obviously a couple inches bigger, and there is not this kind of clean matchup for Oklahoma City. One interesting storyline to watch with that is like looking at the matchups here. Oklahoma City has gone back and forth whether they do the double big lineup with Chet Holmgren and Isaiah Hartenstein on the floor together. When these teams matched up during the regular season, that Holmgren was not active for either one of those games, so kind of don't have an indication of how they want to guard it. I was kind of surprised seeing how many minutes that Hartenstein still clocked. He played a ton in both those regular season games. I think that Siakam sort of has an advantage over either one of these guys, and Holmgren probably has a better chance at it, but that's probably the X factor for this Pacers series. I do think Halliburton's going to struggle. I do think the defense is going to cause some problems. Siakam is the one dude that can get a bucket, can get red hot, and has a championship ring on his finger already. So he's a good player. He has his ups and downs. He isn't as aggressive as I sometimes would like to see. If he can play in attack mode from start to finish, he certainly can be a difference maker in this series.
19.5 is his number on DK, minus 105. Give me a box score, final points as far as tonight for Siakam.
Siakam, I'll go 24, 8, and 5. I do think it can be a good Siakam game right off the rip.
Excellent. All right. And then we were talking a little bit about this last week where if SGA is the focal point, and I'm not Rick Carlisle here, but pretty easy for me to sit here and say that guy's pretty good. As a matter of fact, what did I just read? SGA has a chance to be the fourth player in NBA history to win the scoring title, regular season MVP, and finals MVP in the same season, joining Lou Alcindor, of course, Kareem, Michael Jordan, Shaq. Can SGA repeat the historic feat here? Yeah, why not? Yeah. Finals MVP, he's the favorite. I think he's minus 600 if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I would guess so. That it certainly is. He deserves it, assuming that the series goes as we all expect there. So, yeah, I do think he gets added to that list here. It is incredible with the growth of Shai, the way that he has been everything this organization could ask for, from a face of the franchise, from a culture setter, allowing guys to develop and grow around them. So he's been everything this Thunder team could have hoped for and more. I'm really impressed with the way that they've kind of built around him, gone at his pace, and allowed him to flourish to the fullest extent. So he's made the most of the moment. Shout out to him, and this Thunder organization obviously reaping the benefits there.
Cousin Nicky checking back in. He likes Siakam as well. He'll average 26 plus in this series. Well, if that's the case, there's money to be made on Pascal Siakam. And I think that's where we need to focus. If you're wagering on this series, like, it's real easy for him. I'm not sitting here telling you to take the under on SGA. That's not what I'm saying. Do not do that, because he'll finish right around that number. No ifs, ands, buts about it. And most of the time probably will go over his player prop. But the end of the day, as I said, I'm not Rick Carlisle, but they cannot do what the Minnesota Timberwolves did, because that was not a recipe for success. You must make somebody else do the scoring. So will it be Jalen Williams? I think we talked about this last week, and you're really high on Chet. For my money, I think Chet's the play as well. And it's not to say that I don't think Williams is going to do his thing, because he's been a badass this playoff run. But Chet has so much potential. And oh, by the way, his number is reachable. His number is obtainable at 16.5. He's averaging 15.5. But again, we're talking about the NBA Finals. It's the ultimate series. It's the final. They were talking about it being a puzzle. Each series, each team that they've been going up against, you have to figure the puzzle out. It's win 4 more games and you are done. That's it. You're going down in history as the champion. And I just think that we're going to see the ultimate team style game from OKC, which they've shown us that they're very capable of. Not a selfish team at all. They're highly dominant. They got really good scorers, and especially the size advantage down low with Chet. So I look at Chet at 16.5. Sean, I might wager on him every single game. Him and Siakam might be my play every single game.
Yeah, I like that. And just speaking from tonight's game's perspective, I did write up 3 prop bets for DraftKings Network last night. I do like the under on Tyrese Halliburton of 17.5 there. I do think that he's just going to struggle to get the necessary shot volume to get to that. And at his core, he's still a pass-first guy. So I think Halliburton plays it a little bit overly passive in game 1 as the series starts to get settled. I still think he'll pour in like 12, 15, be in the mix a little bit. But 17.5 feels a bit too large for me. Then I'm going Miles Turner over 5.5 rebounds here. Turner did not exceed that number at any game in the previous matchup against the Knicks there. Averaged just 3.2 rebounds per game. But I think the cleaner comparison is against the Cleveland Cavaliers, the series earlier. He went over it in 4 of those 5 games there. He's going to have to be a man on the boards against this Thunder team. He's probably going to be the likely matchup with Hartenstein there, who attacks the glass at a really great rate and is very productive at it. So I think Turner's got to grow up, and 6 rebounds feels very attainable to me. As of yesterday, that was a plus 110 odds as well. And another plus money odds is Lou Dort to over 2.5 3-pointers that I like here. I do think that they're going to make a clear, conscious effort to force the ball out of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's hands. We've seen Lou Dort sort of be the guy that ends up with the wide open looks throughout this Thunder run, and he has punished teams. He's made 4 3-pointers in 4 separate postseason games. He also shot the ball significantly better at home all season, shot 45% in Oklahoma City compared to 35% on the road there. They got the home crowd behind him. There's going to be energy in the building, and I do think Lou Dort sees plenty of shot volume from the perimeter tonight.
All right. I love the angle on that. Once again, Sean can be found on all things socials. And as he just said, for the folks over at DraftKings Sportsbook, make sure you're checking out all of his content at DK Network, DKNetwork.com. How about that? Of course, you hear Julian Edlow at 3:30 every Thursday right here on The Gambler. All right. I don't want to dive into just some final scores here, but we are going to give us a final score prediction. It's the NBA Finals. We got to go on the number. We're going to wager on it. We're going to put a couple bucks on it. There's worse things that I've wagered on before. What else are we missing here when it comes to some series, the series player props, some of the cool things that they are offering, and whether or not points leader for the series, threes leader, that you already discussed, rebounds leader, assist leader. Is there one that maybe jumps off at you a little bit than the other? We got points per game, assist points per game, rebounds points per game, head-to-head points. There's a ton to choose from over at DraftKings. If we were talking about the rebounding leader for this series, Chet's minus 185, Hartenstein plus 220, and then a drop off to Siakam plus 450, Jalen Williams at 1,300. Is there anybody outside of those top 2, or is it, excuse me, let me back it up. Is it anybody but Chet in your mind?
Yeah, I do actually, and I'm going right to the Pascal Siakam well here at plus 450. And sort of my thought process in getting there is I think Holmgren and Hartenstein will compete with each other for rebounds a little bit here as far as who's the leader. Very curious how they divvy these minutes up. I think the minus 185 in favor of Chet here indicates that the books are believing that he'll see a clear opportunity and Hartenstein gets his minutes limited there. That was the case in this past series, but in the matchup with the Denver Nuggets, where they did have obviously Nikola Jokic, Hartenstein played a ton of minutes in that and was the leading rebounder in that series. So I think that fully comes down to the minutes allotment there. But on the other side of things, the Pacers are going to have to attack the glass. And I do trust Siakam even more than I do trust Miles Turner there. He's just kind of has a little bit of the Joel Embiid critique where he's very large, very big, but not an instinct as a rebounder type guy. Kind of still a very good player, very important player to their team. But Siakam is a dude that I kind of trust to attack the glass more and win that the Thunder do go quote unquote small with Holmgren as the 5 there. Siakam is the guy that I think can clean up on those.
All right. Cousin Nicky checking back in. He likes Caruso to have 5+ steals in a game. Is Cousin Nicky onto something there?
He'll be a problem. There will be some Alex Caruso just swinging games throughout this. 5 is a lot. I can see it. I'm not taking it off the table there. I'm not sure if there's anything from the prop perspective to get in on that. That's definitely a big time payout if you can get in on that. Not ruling it out completely, but 5 is a lot of steals.
5 is a ton of steals. All right. And then the highest single game scoring performance in the series, SGA at minus 475. Again, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that he won't be the guy because he can go out there and score 40 in his sleep. But Jalen Williams at 8-1, Siakam at 9-1, Halliburton at 16-1, Chet at 50-1. Those are some names that definitely have some interest. Is there anybody that we should take a shot at?
I unfortunately think that this is SGA's to lose here. Led the league in scoring across the regular season, still averaging 29.8 points per game across this playoff run. He's the real deal. He's the epicenter of their offense, and I don't think there's a player on this Pacers roster that can stop him in one-on-one settings. I do think there will be a conscious effort to make sure that is not the case, that he does not have free range to just attack guys off the dribble, but ultimately he gets his points no matter what defense is thrown his direction. He's seen it all to this point. He gets the free throw line when he needs to, gets the mid-range when he needs to, can still shoot the 3. SGA is going to be kind of the leading scorer in this series. I feel pretty convinced about.
The only one that I would even take a flyer on, even then, it's like you look at it, is Halliburton. And with that number, it's 16-1, right? Did I say that? Yeah,
Yeah.
16-1 Halliburton. Can Halliburton get to a 40-point mark? He's going to have to score more than 40. Can Pascal Siakam get to 40? I think Pascal Siakam probably has an easier way, an easier lane to get into 40. He's at 9-1. But if I was to take a flyer, I would take a shot at Tyrese Halliburton.
Yeah, the problem I have with the Halliburton stance is it's so up and down in comparison to stars. They're like SGA, a bad game for him. He'll still get you at least 20. Like he's still going to be in that mix here. Halliburton, just in this playoff run, he's had 4 games where he's scored over 30. He's had 3 games where he's been held to 11 points or fewer. I do think we see that play out in this series. That I do think there'll be a Halliburton game where he gets red hot, scores a ton of points here. But I think there'll be another matchup in which he's almost a non-factor there, where you don't feel his presence as a scorer. So when talking about the total points scored or the leading scorer in the series here, I think the ebbs and flows of his game just don't kind of match up for that. And this Thunder defense is going to be more bothersome than any opponent that he's faced thus far.
This is only one game, though. The highest single game scoring performance in the series.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, interesting. So maybe you can kind of get to that there. I think I still lean SGA, but that you can have me more convinced about a flyer from that direction then.
Yeah, look, as far as points per game,
right,
which is points per game. All right, so these are different markets. But yeah, the highest points leader, sorry, this is live on the fly. Highest points leader for DraftKings, minus 3,500 SGA. So that tells you all you need to know about that series. And I wouldn't even say waste your money. Again, nobody wants to see him get hurt, but if he does get hurt, then you're in the running. You get an opportunity, and there are some big names, big numbers attached to some decent names here. You can get Siakam at 28-1, Halliburton at 45-1, Jalen Williams at 25-1. TJ McConnell is listed after Halliburton.
That is interesting. Maybe we get a legendary TJ McConnell performance. I certainly would be all there for that and do hope that is the case. That does surprise me that he's remotely in the mix there.
What the hell is going on there? That's a huge, like, I feel like they're missing a player too. Anyways, we won't waste time on that one. And then they have the points per game here as far as market. Excuse me. What? Points per game. Thank you. To average 20-plus points per game in the finals. Jalen Williams minus 350. Siakam, these are just like some limited markets that don't include SGA, which we like that. Siakam minus 170. Halliburton plus 120. Chet plus 475. I actually like this angle, Sean, because it does remove SGA, which is the answer to every question we've had so far. So it kind of makes things a little bit different. But to average 20-plus points per game, give me a player that you think in this series, not named SGA, that could get there.
Siakam would be my next go-to there. And I'm also seeing you can get him to average 25 plus at plus 280 there. I think there's a real chance of that as well, that he's going to have to play in attack mode. The probably biggest fair critique of Siakam is sometimes that he does, not have the games where he's attempting as many shots as his talent should dictate there. But for a guy to average 20, I do think Siakam gets there in this series. I think the Pacers will need him to. They're going to need some sort of offense. So I like that number there.
I thought he got to about 40 one time. He didn't. 39, though. I knew he got up there one time against the Knicks. I had a great series against the Knicks.
Yeah.
30, 17, 39, 17, 31 in that final closeout game. The issue is Oklahoma City aren't the Knicks. And defensively, he's going to have some tough competition down low. Again, though, Cleveland with some decent size, right? 21, 21, 18. So I can get there with 25. I don't mind taking a flyer on that because, again, somebody's got to do the damn scoring in that. So something to keep our eyes on there. To average 25 plus points per game in the NBA Finals. Pascal Siakam plus 280 here on DraftKings Sportsbook. I might have to take a flyer on that, Sean. I'm writing that one down.
Like it.
I like that as well. All right. We've bloviated. We've given our picks here. And I'm not going to do this on the fly, but know that these numbers will cash in a big way. Sean Barnard, your final score for tonight is what?
I do think it's going to be high-paced. I do think both these teams, that Indiana is going to make an effort to get out and run, and Oklahoma City could match. I'm going 121 Indiana, 117 Oklahoma City. I do think it's a battle. I do think it's a fight. I think the Pacers still game one.
121, 117 Pacers.
Correct.
131, 123 OKC.
Okay. I like it. Even higher.
And that's I like that was the thing that hit me the most in that Knicks series is like Oklahoma City might score 200 points in a game.
Could happen.
I just was like, dude, they have the Pacers, they don't have interest sometimes, it looks like, in stopping them on defense.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they can lock in and be a better defensive team than they get credit. Naismith and Nemhard in particular are kind of the troublemakers against opponents' backcourts, I would say there. But I mean, they're certainly an offensive-minded team. They certainly want to get out and run, and sometimes they're get the ball out of the basket and start running the other direction is like their form of defense to an extent. So yeah, it's going to be high scoring. It's going to be running guns. It's going to be a shootout. Should make for some fun basketball, but maybe not what people have in their head as a NBA Finals or postseason matchup there.
All right. So we got some exact scores. We got some winning plays. Sean Barnard going with the dog in game one here. I'm going with the dog plus the points. So we're all team Indiana Pacers here. Hopefully we get a good series and have some fun. We are going to have some fun for game three, just to let everybody know. Now, game two will be on Sunday night. Great television viewing experience there. Love it. And then game three, Wednesday night. Folks, the Gambler Gang getting together for the NBA Finals as we always do. We did last year, did the year before. It's all running together last year. Last year it was the
Celtics.
Celtics, yeah. Celtics ended up winning. The year before that was the Nuggets and Heat, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we did that as well. So here we are. It's a tradition, but this is different. We're going to have even more crazier time because we have a thing called the Wheel of Misfortune. Oh, yeah. It's going to be a great time on Wednesday night for game three. We'll break that one down a little bit further, of course, on Monday, all next week, and looking forward to doing so with Sean Barnard and Sam Ostry. Of course, Julian Edlow, our great guests that have joined us talking all things NBA basketball. Mark Henry Jr. will be live on Saturday from 11 to 1 with Sean Barnard, Tough Cover Radio Show. Can't wait to hear what you guys have to say. Recapping game one. Looking forward to all things in game two and mixing everything in from the sports world live on The Gambler once again, 11 to 1. I will be off on Friday. Much needed day off. I'm going to go hit the course.
Nice.
Yeah, man. Got to get some golf going, dude. I haven't played golf since my birthday last week of April. I'm dying. So I'm using a day. I'm getting out there tomorrow. No rain on the radar. So I said, let's go. But we'll be back, of course, all next week. As I said, live show on Wednesday inside the Gambler Lounge. Before we get out of here, though, Sean Barnard, quickly on this one, if you would not mind. We were talking about some Sixers conversation before the recording. You brought up an article that was written by Keith Pompey, and apparently the 76ers, behind the scenes, a lot of people in the PR world, a lot of people that handle the interviews, setting up the behind the scenes stuff for media credentials, all new, like people that we have formed good relationships,
yeah,
that everybody has good relationships with. And you know what? At the end of the day, damn good people apparently were let go. What the hell happened there?
Yeah, it's a very strange kind of storyline here. I guess my interpretation from afar here would be that a lot got out behind the scenes that shouldn't have last year in regards to Joel Embiid's health and some other stuff, the inside the locker room kind of perspective, that the mindset of the organization seems to be, we're not sorting through who the problem is and just kind of starting over here. From a personal standpoint, I'm pretty sad for all these guys. I think a lot of very good people and everyone that I had a connection with inside the Sixers organization essentially got those same papers. So disappointed for them, feel bad for them, and do think that they were good people and great at their job there. So it's an interesting storyline. I guess kind of just a little bit of an under the radar story surrounding the Sixers there. Something to monitor moving forward.
How many people? Do we have a number?
I might be in that Pompey piece. I'm double digit, I'm pretty sure, but I don't have the specific number. I saw at least like 6 or 7 names that I full out recognized.
What? Well, again, they know what's being leaked and what's not. Now, to fire everybody, come on, dude. What's going on there? That's a tough look. That's not right.
Down to Joel's bodyguard, by the way.
Joel's bodyguard got
security,
canned?
I guess is his title, but his personal security guy, yeah.
But if he's Joel Embiid's personal security guard, was it just supplied by the team or was it Joel Embiid's guy?
Well, I would assume so if they were able to fire him, that they were paying him there. But the guy that was constantly traveling with Joel and doing all that kind of stuff on road games, all that sort of like there will be a new dude doing that moving forward, I guess.
Should I put my resume in?
Yeah, might as well. Yeah, I'll roll around with Joel. I'm actually quick to stick up for Joel here. Did you see that Ringer rankings yesterday?
I try not to read anything Ringer, but teach their own. I would just say, people know that he's a lightning rod. right? Mentioned Joel Embiid, it gets conversation. On the same side, like he can't play, Sean. He's
Sure.
not healthy.
I get he's a really difficult one here, but Sean Brace, if I'm asking you right now, the top 100 NBA basketball players, where would you rank Joel Embiid currently, even with last year considered?
Can't believe you're doing this to me. Like I have to sit here and say he's still a top 10 player. Have to.
84th.
Yeah, that's just stupid. He's still a top 10 player, but this is it. This is like we're at that line. And again, it happened last year for me. I know that people are going to be like, oh, we knew. Fine, that's fine. But like you still battled through it. What took place in that Knicks series, played in the Olympics. Like, all right, it's still Joel Embiid. And he is one of the most dominant players, if not the most dominant player, every time he takes the floor.
He was a clear-cut top 3 player in the league 18 months ago. Like,
yeah,
everyone.
But a lot has changed in the 18 months.
Sure. No, I hear you. And I get
like, is come on, dude.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. That's where I'm at. Like Christian Braun was 83rd. Like, what are we doing here?
That's good. Good work by the Ringer. That actually pushes me over and makes me want to read them.
Yeah, no, they know what they're doing. I do think that it is fairly intentional with it there, but yeah, pretty absurd stuff. I do think the Joel Embiid pendulum has once again swung to far too negative. And Zion Williamson, by the way, who has all these same availability issues and more legitimate like character concerns here. He was in the top 40 for this list.
Just a little bit. Yeah. All right. That's fair. That's fair. Yeah, you're right. So you got to be even with that, but they know what they're doing. It's Joel Embiid. Regardless, we'll see what happens. Sixers 25-1. You taking a piece of that action next year?
I'll have myself talked into it by the time we get there. At this current point, I don't see the vision quite yet. We'll see how much.
I'll have myself talked into it. All right, that's all we needed on that front. That's Sean Barnard. I'm Sean Brace. Let's get the hell out of here. Sixers 25-1. You're gonna talk yourself into that. I love it.
Ace Bailey season.
Ace Bailey season is right. Quentin Grimes gonna be back.
Quentin Grimes will absolutely be back.
McCain's gonna be back.
Yep.
Maxey.
Yep. Paul George.
We're putting it together. Get the band back, baby. Joel Embiid's new security guard. Let's go. Sean, you're the best. Good luck on all the plays. We'll continue to follow you on socials. Read them over at dknetwork.com. Keeping it moving. A lot going on here. We have a wrestling roundtable coming your way with Nick Bacone, Vaughn Johnson, Jason Finelli, and John Jansen. That's coming your way a little bit later on the station here, 7 o'clock. It is Money in the Bank, Sean Barnard.
Of course.
Yeah, is that what we're doing here? Money in the Bank roundtable, baby. Let's go. That's coming your way at 7 o'clock tonight. So for all you wrestling people out there, nobody does it better than the great Vaughn Johnson we saw the other night at F1 Arcade, Nick Bacone, Jason Manelli, and John Jansen. For Sean Barnard, I'm Sean Brace. Everybody, good luck on those plays. Let's go Pacers. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Peace.